Good day to you. This is Anagalactic on Friday, the 24th of May, our second presentation. If you don't try, you'll definitely not succeed. And so that's why I have been known to say that if you're not making mistakes, you're not trying very hard. At the cutting edge of science, you must make mistakes. I just heard a quote, or read about a quote from Einstein, which I do not doubt is true. Einstein is well quoted. And he said, I think and I think, and 99 times I think, and I'm wrong, but on the 100th time I'm right. That's how it is. In science, though, it's a two-step process as I evaluate the whole flow, the scientific process for an individual, if you're actually trying to push the envelope in any field. The first thing that will happen will be for you alone. By definition, you made a discovery. So you think. And of course, so you hope. And this is the most dangerous part of the process because now you want to believe that it's right. That's why science is based on proof. That's what distinguishes it from philosophy and religion, and indeed from the rest of human life. It's common to use logic, and it's even common to use the scientific method. One will do it more or less unconsciously as a natural process. However, the process in science is much different. It's only the same in shadow form. That is, everything else becomes a shadow when you look at the rigor of the scientific method, which I've given several lectures on about 2.5 years ago. I concentrated on this for a while because I am somewhat convinced, at least from my own experience and my education, that the scientific method is never taught properly. It just never is. And I know I want to address this issue of my attitude, my posture. I am not a cynic. I come across that way these days, I think, and it's somewhat conscious because I'm trying to emphasize the importance of what I'm doing as I see it. This can lead to pretension and pomposity, giving the impression of precocity that, I really don't have any right to rant and rave. I mean, I accept this principle totally. However, it is part of the scientific process to seek consensual review because it's absolutely required in science. Science is communicative, 100%. And so, although our method is rigorous when it comes to proof, when it comes to the social aspect of science, I think it's fair to say, without being cynical, but simply being healthily skeptical, it does not look like science has a feedback mechanism in any way comparable to the norm. And I think one has to be fair and even-handed in this assessment. It's not like it's a conspiracy. It's always easy to get into the conspiracy mode of thinking, like there's some kind of concerted effort to block science, and I think I give that impression. I do not think that that's the case, but I posture that way quite consciously. I use swear words, and I come across as a mean old professor who's just out to berate you if you don't do what I say. It is totally nonsensical what I'm doing, except in this very restricted aspect that I take so seriously that it's just really surprising even to me. Because I'm at the age now, at least in my life course, I'm done. I could study this on my own for the rest of my life without sharing it at all. But you see, I'm a man of principle. Not everyone is. Not everyone feels the urge to be principled. But if you're going to be principled, you actually have to be consistent. Otherwise, you're a hypocrite. My biggest fear is being a hypocrite. So I'm really inveighing against my own fear, and a lot of it is posturing, I fully admit. I have gone through some very strange, quite trying ordeals in the pursuit of my career. My 2 year, well, it's been almost 3 years now, 540 presentations, was mostly practice. I would say 80% of it was me warming up. Of course I was trying to be serious, but it's really only been in the last 6 months, due to the nature of this discovery vector, which has not ceased, that now my findings have not only congealed, but they've reached out in the directions that I expected to see some progress and new access to understanding in physics that is currently out of the reach of physics. I take this quite personally. I take this to heart. I am convinced, and I want to emphasize, that I believe that science has a religious meaning, that we're blueprinted. I talk about this blueprint a lot. We have consciousness because the universe had consciousness to give. I don't, honestly, without posturing at all, I don't understand how a rational man, especially one who calls himself a scientist, can overlook the fundamental intrinsic truth that there is a design, is a blueprint. And when you consider the human equation, as I call it, the human equation is my term for basically the human situation, which I define quite carefully on a superpositional dichotomy as being the overlay of our emotional system and our logical system. I don't see anything left out in that. A human being is split right down the middle. And logic and emotion don't go together except in a single individual. You have to negotiate that somehow. I'm doing so now because I feel compelled. I've made vows. I do not intend to be a hypocrite. I wasn't when I was a Bible scholar. I was true to my calling. It didn't lead anywhere, but that's no fault of anything except there was no reception. Of course, you have to blame yourself. Your conscience will. My conscience does. It says, well, you're always there at the scene of the crime. It's like Clouseau, played by Peter Sellers, in that famous scene in the Pink Panther movie, where he's on trial. He's called as a witness to capture the Phantom. And the Clouseau is saying, well, I've been tracking the Phantom, and he's always there at the scene of the crime. He's the only one who's there at the scene of the crime every time. And the barrister, in his beautiful British accent, says, well, there's always someone else there, too, isn't there, Inspector? What, says Peter Sellers, Clouseau. Says, you're always there, aren't you? Now, Sellers starts to sweat a little, and he reaches in his lapel and pulls out a hanky to daub his face, and there, hanging from his hanky, is the Pink Panther diamond. So the point being, I'm always at the scene of the crime. Every time I complain about science, who's always there? I am. So who is at fault? Well, you have to suspect the person who's there every time. Too bad. I've used beer, I've used drugs. They are called drugs. I don't call any of the things I use drugs. Okay? Drugs are things that you buy on the street to hurt yourself with. That's a drug. Or from the pharmacological industry. Those are drugs. But marijuana, beer, and snus are not drugs. They're household items for a redneck, which I've become since I live in Rednecksville. You might as well call the city Rednecksville. Alright, so what do I have for us today? I want to be frank and earnest about my approach to the new geometry. I believe that geometry is the basis of science. There is no other basis. It's not numbers, it's not logic. Well, it is logic, but it's not numbers. Okay? It's induction and deduction, that's logic, yes. Science is communicative, so it's communication, it's logic, it's proof. But what's the goal? Well, you see, we've become convinced, certainly in the 20th century, I'd say it's endemic. We might as well just come out in the open and say we believe that science is technology. Science is technology. Well, I say bull fucking shit. No, it's not. No, it's not. That is not what science is, okay? That's where I come from. Science is to save your soul. Now, you can go to the emotional side, because the emotional side of a human is dominated by love. Love. If you go that route, you don't need science. That's simply the way it is. I was in religion for about 30 years. I'm a Christian Bible scholar. I'm not a Christian like belonging to a church, so you don't have anything to hate. There's nothing to hate about me. My whole orientation in life from the age of 17 on is to have no faults. There's nothing to pin on me. Now, as a human, there's going to be a list that builds up, especially in your teens and 20s, and then you may need religion, you may need philosophy to deal with your agony, your absolute confusion. And love won't help you. I mean, it can, it should, and I will say it does if you pursue religion correctly. You'll get your answers if you're pure of heart. Well, that's actually a really tall order, because your love is going to be ripped out of you. Whatever you choose to love, whatever you come to love, it will be destroyed mercilessly and brutally right in front of your eyes, whatever it is. And then, literally, God help you then. Christianity is not what most Christians think it is. And to come back to science, I'm afraid the same situation pertains to science today. If you go back in time to the time of Ruđer Bošković, which was the 18th century, the 1700s, about 300 years ago, you find that natural philosophy was the definition of science. It is not any longer. Something changed. Is it good? Is it bad? That's the emotional side. But it's unavoidable. It's just that in science it doesn't fit. You have to have it as a human. But in science it simply fucks you up. It screws everything up. Well, John Archibald Wheeler is more guilty than I am. Brian Keating is far more guilty than I am of posturing, of showing emotional favoritism, of being biased, prejudiced, swayed. By whatever, I've indicted all of these men, Brian Greene, Sean Carroll, the whole lot of them. Every single last one of them is doing this for money. Is that bad? Is that good? I don't deal with that. I have to point out the facts, though. These men are after money. All of them are. Well, I'm not. I don't do science for money. I'll never charge you money. I never ask anybody to press like, subscribe, go to Partheon or whatever it's called, give me Bitcoin. Fuck that! And I use some very harsh words. I use homosexual terms. I use the word retard, nigger. I totally am ruthless against the world as I see it. Doesn't belong in science. Does not belong in science. But I'm barking at the moon when I do that. I have to do it. I'm not sure that I will continue to have to do it I do it less and less as time goes on, but this posturing has got to end. It ends right now. It ends today. We're going to have a very short, informal discussion of what we're doing with this new geometry. So the main thrust of this new geometry is that it's spherical, and so it matches physics. The fact that it has a number system is, of course, critical. It does. That's my discovery, is that spherical space has its own number system. Is it profound in so many ways? I can't count them. But to keep this to an overview, the geometry that we say that we have is not geometry. It's really as simple as that. It's not geometry. It's trigonometry. Trigonometry is based on lines. 3 lines, to be specific. Because of the right angle law, you need 3 lines to make the basis of geometrical mathematics. Well, the universe simply does not use that. And mankind has fooled itself, beginning at Euclid, that the linear number system and linear trigonometry is all we will ever need. I'm sorry, but that's no longer true. It was still true in the 19th century. Nobody had to deal with sphericity. The atom had not been discovered, that's a sphere. The proton and the electron had not been discovered, those are spheres. The photon had not yet been surmised, although it was eventually promoted by Einstein in his photoelectric effect paper, which he produced 3 major papers in 1 year. And one of them got him the Nobel Prize, but it was not relativity. I think most people know that, but it still is a remarkable fact. So science is fickle. Science is human. And at no time in history was it ever more obvious that science can be strangled to death by humans if it's allowed to get out of control. There's too many people now. Science is organized around the government, around technology. There's propaganda, brainwashing. It goes all the way to the children in the school, which I take very much to heart. That I believe that things are extremely bad in science right now. The presenters out on YouTube aren't worth their weight in Bitcoin. It doesn't matter. All they're doing is making money. And that is how they justify themselves, openly, shamelessly, as if that had always been the way it is. That's not the way it is. We're involved in a situation where we're alive, we have consciousness, we're going to die. There is an enormous universe to study. Why would we do that? We're on a planet that's been invested with an ecology, and you know the propaganda surrounding all of these issues. You're simply not allowed to know where you're from. It's natural selection blocks your path. If you buck the system, if you say, no, I don't believe in natural selection, you're marked, you're dead. You're dead. Absolutely dead. Men like, well, I might as well use his name since he makes himself into the Pope of atheism is Richard Dawkins. But my God, he's not alone. Richard Dawkins, there's a reason why he's been popular for decades. Completely against humans. He hates humans. The only, this goes back to religion. You hate humanity? He's telling everybody there's no God. And he claims he says that in the name of science. Well, it's just inevitable that a man like myself is going to rise out of the sticks somewhere. I'm literally in the wilderness. And just call Richard Dawkins to the... You see, I can't fight him. He's already won. If you believe in Satan, Satan has won the day. Well, I don't like to turn to religion because, it baffles people these days. But actually, if you really didn't know anything about the religious idea of Satan, and you had to come up with some formula for how governments came to dominate the earth and now they're going to call the shots until doomsday, this monstrous huge prison system It's called democracy, communism, fascism. It doesn't matter. It's all the same. You're being run by professional thieves. Everyone knows that. But what do you say about it? Well, now we're being taught that's the way it is. Live it up. That's in the Bible. Eat and drink, for tomorrow you shall die. Is that really how you think? I hope not. I hope that's not how you think or feel. The goal in studying this geometry is to fulfill the blueprint imperative to get out of madness. Do you understand the depth and profundity of what I just said? Science is here to save you. It's to give you a system of logic to fight against these insane people like Richard Dawkins, Sean Carroll, even the great Leonard Susskind. I respect all these men as being professionals. If we were at a banquet, I would not be throwing water in their faces. I would be diplomatic, humble, and real. I would stay away from any arguments. I wouldn't confront them. I'm not out to steal their dog dish. I'm not out to take the food out of their goddamn mouths. I bless them in the name of God. If you're able to rob the American fucking public, do it. I simply am not like that. I have my faults. But I'm not a thief. I'm not a liar. These men are professional liars. They're not after understanding. They don't care about the truth. But by God, if I said that and they heard me, any one of them, they would run from across the street, across the city, catch a plane. If I were denouncing them on some public forum as liars and thieves, they'd be after me with a hatchet. So I don't do that. Ever. But I am trying to be heard, because what I have is valuable and what they have is not. It's the opposite of valuable. It's destructive. Calculus is certified insanity. All those big fat books of calculus, they're not necessary. All of them should just have a $sign on the front. That should be the symbol for calculus, is $3 signs. The ancient symbol of Satan. SSS, or S with 2 lines through it. It means SSS, 666. Satan, Satan, Satan. You don't believe that? Goody for you, but you don't have any answers. So you can't come down on me for trying to give you the truth. Now, so far, I have no critics. See, that enrages me. I need critics so I can tear them to shreds, so that you will benefit from their destruction. They deserve it. They deserve to be brought down and mashed in front of the public eye. Children are welcome to watch. This is what happens to an atheist, honey. Look what Great Uncle Sam did to that jackass. And then everybody wins. Richard Dawkins gets his feelings hurt and he has to go home and cry and hold on to his tangerine-flavored, tasseled blankie dolly and just cry his little eyes out to Satan for please kill Scotty. And that's the way it's going to end if I get my way. So what we're doing is studying reality. You hear it all over the internet, reality. When you see that word, run. In fact, you shouldn't be watching YouTube at all. Just watch this channel. That's it. Turn everybody off. Everybody else is lying to you, period. I have to do this. I have to tell you the way it is. This spherical geometry represents physics. The shit called geometry is not geometry. It's trigonometry. It's based entirely on straight lines. The universe simply does not use straight line logic. It uses spherical logic, spherical geometry, which is really the first geometry ever discovered, is my geometry. I call it mine because I have to. This is how we communicate. It comes from a man who's a discoverer. Well, you see, that's pretty highfalutin for a little brat. That's pretty highfalutin for someone who doesn't have a degree or any awards. So what is this spherical geometry? It gives us the numeric and geometric basis for space-time. It gives us the quantum right out the gate. And that's going to be in the Unimetrics series. It's in my previous 540 lectures, but I've got to confess it's a bit distributed. You may not think that you have time. I would recommend not going back. But eventually, I will have an index, and there will be select videos, some of which are extraordinary. I've made some absolutely award-winning, it's about 1 out of 10 or 1 out of 20, okay? Because I'm a beginner. I'm a beginner. The concept of design is the basis of science. That's been forgotten. Geometry is the basis of reality and therefore of science. That's been forgotten. We say we have a number system. Not really. Not really. Yeah, it makes jets. I know. I know. We're in outer space, so you must think, well, how can you say it doesn't work? Here's how. It works for Earth. I really don't know how it could be simpler. We are on Earth. We're not on the moon. We're not on Mars. We're not in the stars. We're on Earth. Where calculus works. It does. Linear algebra works with calculus. That's why it works. Is because of calculus. Do you see the cul-de-sac that science has backed itself into and can't get out? It's the concept of our number system has to be basic. Well, I overturned that. I overturned the money changers' tables. Linear algebra does not work. That's been proved. It does not address the quantum paradox correctly. It will never succeed. We're stuck with a quantum paradox forever. Except I'm not. I've got it. Also, I've seen beyond space-time. Space-time is not curved. Space-time involves curvature of space, but space-time is not curved. It's a two-component system. Everything is two-componency now. See, our entire mathematics system is one component based. 1, 2, 3. These are one component numbers. And they're all null. They only have relativity with 0. And 0 is not a real number. Now, all of this has been rigorously proved, mathematically, geometrically, and commonsensically. Ultimately, this has to make sense. Well, it does. I have the definition of the proton, and the electron, and the photon. The photon is the one that I wanted. But now I know what the photon is. Particle, wave, only I can define that now. Only I can. This is what I'm going to enable you to do as well. Theoretically, you could already know by now. If you've been following, you might know. But my job is not to take chances. This has to be repeated over and over again. I'll be repeating this for the rest of my life, better and better and better. And as it gets better and better and more solidly based so that a child can understand it, that's also my goal, because that is part of the blueprint. You will be able to see reality in a new way. Nothing less than that. It will have far-reaching consequences for your ability to appreciate, for instance, the night sky. You'll look up and you'll be able to see things that no one else can see. Literally see them clearly when your physicists cannot. It's a moral issue too. I do have a religious background. I consider these men to be evil. But I wouldn't say it to their faces because I'm not a judge. It's just that in rational science, in order to make oneself heard, in the circumstances we find ourselves in, which is now extremely bad, extreme measures are called for. I'm going to take heads. I'm going to call names. at the right time, if I feel that it's valuable enough, I'll take these guys down. I'll annihilate them. My life could actually be in danger, theoretically, because these men value their rice bowl very, very highly. They earned their way to the top. It's dog eat rat. They got to the top. They're not niggers. They're not slaves. They're not retards. They're respected. I don't respect them. I think they're the worst. They're the dregs of the lying, cheap shit, money-loving, ungodly bastards with very pleasant faces that I find repulsive. I'm the one with the pretty face. So you see how things reverse. If you study your enemy's ways long enough to defeat your enemy by knowing his ways, you'll end up being your own worst enemy. That could easily happen to me, except I'm exempt. It will never happen to me. But I'm going to push the envelope there too. So it may seem like it's happening to me. To get your attention. And I'm not talking to you, the listener. I'm talking over your shoulder. It's time for you to start spreading the word. In July, Anna Galactic is going to present the Unimetrics series that will change science, not might. This will change the course of humanity. And no matter who rages against it, it's not going to stop what's going to happen. I will get the truth out. That's my job. Your life has no significance compared with that. Don't forget, I began by saying, I cannot hurt a fly. I will never harm a human being. I never have. I never will. But these men put themselves up on pedestals, and they talk to the youth. They talk to the children as if they had higher authority than God himself. I will take those men down with a fucking scythe. Just give me half an opportunity, I'll pull their pants down and paddle their fannies until they cry. That's what this geometry is all about. It's about cutting through the bullshit and getting to reality. What is the universe really? What is space? What is time? Do you know? Do you have any idea? Let me give you a test question and we're going to cut this off. When a child is looking up into the night sky, perhaps for the first time, but definitely for the first time with a question, and that child asks the question that every child asks, how far does it go? What's at the edge? How big is it? What is the universe? What is that up there? How big is it? Do you have an answer? I'm going to tell... No, you don't. And so you're guilty. You're guilty of giving the youth the wrong impression. You call yourself an astronomer. I call you a sick-ass liar. I've met some astronomers in my life. Some of them very good. But I've only met 2 astronomers that were worth the name. Because they won't lie to the children. They will share the actual excitement of creation. And they won't hide and say that they don't believe in God because no scientist would believe in a superstition such as a designer. That's the name of the game today. It will not be the name of the game tomorrow. Or my name is not Drake Sterling. Stay tuned. We have a lot more to come in the next presentation, which will be tomorrow. I'm going to give you a thorough overview of space-time. You've never heard anything like it, because you're going to actually understand space-time. It's going to make sense, and you're going to be able to use it and share it. Everything that I say has been proved, or I would not say it. You do have to accept that on faith right now, because I cannot get consensual review, because science has been overrun with heathen infidels. So if you're looking for a religion, look into Islam. Fuck Christianity and definitely fuck Judaism, but Islam still has some hope to offer. And that's my advice to you. Whether you accept it or not makes no difference. The only thing that matters is that I'm doing my job. This is Anagalactic. Someone has to do it. Keep looking up. We'll be back tomorrow with Space Time. All right.